10 seconds.
Broadcasting across the state of Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and around the world on the Civic Media app. This is the Dom Salvia Show. And now, here's your host, Dom Salvia.
And welcome to the Dom Salvia Show. Thank you for tuning in. You could be a big part as always. Join us on the lines, talk or text 855-752-4842. I want to thank our buddy Aaron Zommers for producing us yesterday. Jess P.S. back in the seat on the board. Good to see you again, Jess.
Good to see you, Dom.
I'm glad you're back again. And today, it's Wednesday. My co-host for the day, Matt Rothschild, formerly of the Progressive Magazine. A lot of formers here. Matt, former executive director of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, current friend of ours, and frequent Civic Media contributor and Big Bird fan. Hey, Matt, welcome back.
Oh, it's always great to be with you and Jess on a Wednesday afternoon, even a rainy, snowy Wednesday afternoon.
I know, it's spring in Wisconsin. Well, almost anyway. That's how we do it around here. Lots to get to, as always, Matt, and I always appreciate you coming around and getting your perspective on these things. And I love it. You've been around a long time. You've been involved and been paying attention to politics for a very long time. And I keep hearing this recurring theme over and over and over and over and over again from Republicans. Over and over again, Matt. And let me just throw this one out there. Allison Durr reporting at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. 2 weeks before Wisconsin Supreme Court election, Schimmel raises Milwaukee vote counting trope. Of course he does. Of course. And just doing the hard work found this, right?
Yes, I did.
So Schimmel goes on right-wing talk radio. And this was a cat here in the state of Wisconsin who called Tim Walz's young son a blubbering bitch boy. So I like to refer...
Right, just for being proud of his father.
Yes, which is something, Jay Weber is probably not used to. I'm just saying. So I'm going to call Jay Weber the blubbering bitch boy. And I think I'm going to have to throw Brad Schimmel in here as well. They keep repeating it. They could have fixed it, but they keep wanting to sow doubt or confusion or both to the electorate. And there's only a couple of things that I think that would cause this. Either Brad Schimmel is truly an idiot. I mean, really that dumb that he cannot pick up, I don't know, the most recent paper quoting his own words and learn and understand how the voting works in Milwaukee County. Or he knows how it works and he's lying to everyone.
I'd say door number 2 here.
Yeah, see, I don't know.
Door number 3, remove the or. It's hand.
It's hand. Both of them. I know that both can be true, and given how this guy is, he might be that dumb. Let's hear the man in his own words.
Sure.
Get our votes banked, make this too big to rig, so we don't have to worry that at 11:30 in Milwaukee they're going to find bags of ballots that they forgot to put into the machines like they did in 2018 or in 2024 when Eric Hovde, was ahead all night and then all of a sudden Milwaukee County changed that.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I don't know if there was fraud there. There's no way for me to know that.
There was no fraud.
There's no way for you to know that. Didn't they do a recount, at least for the Trump election, from some of the reported, Matt? And it is so frustrating to me that people could still consider this. And anyone that talks about this in these ways, to think that they are a serious candidate for anything. I would let this guy hold my pen. As the reporting states at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, just after midnight of 2018, more than 47,000 absentee ballots from Milwaukee voters were added to the statewide tally, giving Democrat Tony Evers his first solid lead in the race for governor against the incumbent at the time was Governor Scott Walker. Now, Evers ultimately won, though the time the city reported his absentee ballots prompted criticism from Republicans, including Walker, who said he was blindsided, I tell you, when he learned the city's absentee ballots were still being counted. Now, in the same race, as Schimmel's lamenting, Schimmel lost his bid for a second term as Republican Attorney General. And if I recall some of the reporting on this, he was the only incumbent Attorney General to lose in that cycle. So way to go, Brad. Now, also in November of 24, Hovde, let's forget Hovde, don't forget the mustache, right? Lost his bid to unseat Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin and claimed he was shocked. Shocked, I tell you. Now, these people are so shocked and surprised. He was shocked by Milwaukee's reporting of its absentee ballot results early in the morning after the election. More than 6 years after the scuffle over the 2018 absentee ballots, it is widespread knowledge. Is it really, though, Allison? Is it widespread knowledge? Widespread knowledge that the state's most populous city consistently reports its absentee ballots all at once early in the morning after a major election. Now, why would that be, Matt? Is that because of the fraud? You know, all those black people in Milwaukee. Isn't that what you're really saying, Brad Schimmel, Republicans? That's because the sheer number of absentee ballots cast by the city's voters in major elections, coupled with a state law prohibiting clerks from processing absentee ballots before 7 a.m. on election day.
And they could have fixed that. In fact, there was a bill to fix that, to allow the clerks to count the absentee ballots before 7 a.m. the day of the election, but Republicans wouldn't pass it. So now, as has happened not just in Milwaukee, but dozens of other towns and cities, they do a central count of all absentee ballots after they close the doors on the people who've been standing in line till 8 p.m. So you can't count hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of ballots, you know, between 8 o'clock and 8:10 and get the result. It takes a while to count those. That's why in Milwaukee, you get the results at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, or 1 in the morning, or 2 in the morning. It's just standard. It's been audited. It's been recounted dozens of times, and there's nothing wrong there in Milwaukee or in other cities and towns that do central count. And I gotta believe Schimmel knows this. I mean, there's no way he can't know it. It's just
Come on,
he
man,
can't come out in public and say, you know, these Hovde lost fair and square, or he himself lost fair and square, or dare I say it, Donald Trump lost fair and square sometime. So you know, they don't want to admit that. They can't admit it.
Easy now, Matt. Easy.
That man needs a support network.
Yes, he does. Widespread knowledge, Matt. Apparently, only widespread knowledge if you're not a losing Republican in that particular race. Because I don't remember Donald Trump lamenting the late counting of the absentee ballots in the last election, right? Widespread
Correct.
knowledge. Maybe someone should tell Hovde, Scott Walker, and wannabe Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Brad Schimmel. To your point, the Republican-controlled Senate last year let a bipartisan bill die. Now, for Brad Schimmel, that means both Republicans and Democrats in the assembly would have made it possible for clerks to start processing and finish counting the absentee ballots earlier. They let it die. They let it die. And why? Well, because that gives them reason, excuse, ability to shed, cast some shade on the city of Milwaukee. They let it die. They could have done something about it. Oh, but there's a little bit more from the reporting at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Let's see here. They talked about the board. Let's get down. Schimmel, a conservative Waukesha County judge. We know he's running against Susan Crawford. Vote for Susan. I think she knows how the votes are counted in the city of Milwaukee. In a statement, Crawford's spokesman said this: Schimmel is dabbling in conspiracy theories to please his ally Elon Musk, and it's unbecoming of a judge and candidate for the state's high court. Of course, referencing Musk and the millions of dollars he put into both the presidential race, and of course, he's supporting Schimmel as well.
Unbecoming, putting it mildly.
Yeah, come on. They could have fixed it. They keep bringing it up, and I don't know. I know. So maybe it's better. Is it better? I'm not sure. Is it better that Brad Schimmel is actually aware of this and is lying to everybody, putting this out there to cast doubt on this election? Is that possible? Or is he just a moron? Does he really not? Is he just actually ignorant of how it happens? I don't know which one is worth, but both of them are disqualifying for him to be certainly on the Wisconsin Supreme Court judge in Waukesha. You might want to reconsider, who you have on your bench.
I mean, he's just regurgitating this myth, this falsehood, this lie, this blatant lie, to please not just Elon Musk, as it said in that article, but Donald Trump himself and all the right-wingers in Wisconsin who've been fed this propaganda, for years now. They just need, to get their steady diet of this crap. I mean, it's unbelievable. And Brad Schimmel, the guy's been a hack since day one. In 2010, when he was district attorney in Walworth County, he gave Scott Jensen, who was the former Republican majority leader in the state assembly, just a slap on the wrist and settled for a misdemeanor when he had been indicted on 3 felonies
for the caucus
scandal in 2001, when he and his Democratic counterpart Chuck Walla, they and their staffs were engaging in campaigning in the People's House on our dime, and they got caught red-handed. Both were convicted. Jensen got to appeal his conviction and get a retrial in Waukesha County. And who was the DA there? Brad Schimmel, and Brad Schimmel just gave no time. Quala, was sentenced to 9 months in jail.
Different outcomes for the same crime mean now to get Democrat and a Republican. And I would also know, my understanding, Jensen is a big paid lobbyist, and you can't be a big paid lobbyist if you're a big fat felon. So that was very critical for Jensen to do this lobbying gig that he has. I think for maybe it's a school choice. He's involved. You can Google it, folks. You know where it's at. All the lobbyists are listed somewhere. You can find out who's paying them and what they're advocating for. But that action with, through the moving of, I think, the venue of that, and they put it in Waukesha, and it was Brad Schimmel, and they were able to do that, and he got a misdemeanor. Now he's able to, go on and make that big lobby money. So there you go, folks. This is the guy who wants to be your next Wisconsin Supreme Court justice. This is a guy who's palling around with Trump Jr. and the bad Kirk. Man, not even the good Kirk. Captain Kirk. The bad Kirk, Charlie Kirk. And he's also said multiple times he is here. We've heard the video. We've heard the audio. I'm here to be a support team for Donald Trump. He needs people like Brad Schimmel on the court. And this is the guy who bragged or complained, I guess depends on how you look at it, about going through knee pads for begging all that money.
Well, he made good use of them. Elon Musk has poured in $12 million at last count, probably more by now.
I don't know if he was begging, Matt. Come back with us. Matt Rothschild joining me today. Just PS is back on the board. We got some sound. Tim Walz was in Eau Claire as well. And folks, Tammy Baldwin, our senator from the great state of Wisconsin, she's going around. Similar, I guess, to what Bernie Sanders is doing. Some of our representatives, Mark Pocan included, are out there. They're pounding the pavement. They're talking to the folks. We're going to get to some of that as well. Also, Julie Bomar, she's the executive director of the Wisconsin Farmers Union. We had quite a conversation yesterday about what the federal government is doing to Wisconsin farmers. We're going to get her take as well. Come back with us, 855-752-4842. Not to put too fine a point on it, say I'm the only bee in your bonnet, make a little birdhouse in your soul.
30 seconds, Matt.
Welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842, 855-75 Got Matt Rothschild joining me today. Got Just PS on the board. I believe we're having a few phone problems, so folks, be patient. We'll get some engineers, some smarter folks and I working on that, 855-752-4842. Hopefully that will not stop us from interviewing our guest coming up at the bottom of the hour, Julie Bomar, Executive Director from the Wisconsin Farmers Union, on the impact of these administrative changes going on, the tariffs, and what's happening to Wisconsin farmers. We look forward to that conversation. Matt, as mentioned, Tim Walz in Eau Claire, man, we got some sound of that. Want to bring it to you fine folks, and just always doing the hard work. Let's start with cut number one about, come on, do something, people. Let's hear what Tim had to say.
I understand what I have is I have a platform and a megaphone, and my goal in doing these town halls is I was hearing that primal scream of, God dang it, do something.
Motley Crue primal scream, baby. That's what I'm talking. God dang it, do something. Do something. And
at least he was listening, at least he did hear it. I've been wondering, where's Kamala Harris been? I mean, she's got to be hearing this primal scream too. Anyone who knows any Democrat or progressive who's looking at what Donald Trump's doing to our country has got to be hearing this primal scream.
And perhaps we'll get to that in the next hour. The Democratic base is angry. All the Democrats, save one in the House, voted against this continuing resolutions, and the Democrats in the Senate just rolled over and took it. I'm still mad about that. We will get to that, but let's stay on point right now. Tim Walz in Eau Claire. Let's hear cut number two, please.
I know some of you know this on the iPhone. They've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping. So, and if you own one, we're not blaming you. You can take dental floss and pull the Tesla thing off, and take out, just telling you.
I love that sense of humor, man. That's what you need, man. Poke fun at these guys. Don't let them just torment us to death.
Well, and they don't have a sense of humor whatsoever, so that makes it even more entertaining when it really...
Well, yeah, I mean, when the only humor that you're allowed to have is something that, makes fun of other human beings for innate characteristics.
Oh, yes. Digging deep. Also, Matt, you mentioned Tammy Baldwin in the midst of a, statewide tour, going out talking to folks. What are you hearing about that?
Yeah, I just love what Tammy Baldwin's doing now, and what Mark Pocan's been doing too, going up to Van Orden's district. Tammy was in La Crosse on Monday. This is a hands-off Medicaid tour. She was in La Crosse on Monday. She was in Eau Claire also yesterday. Tomorrow she's going to be in Madison and Racine, and then Waukesha on Friday. I mean, she's getting out there, going across the state, meeting with constituents where Republicans are hiding from constituents right now. And she's bringing up this issue. Look, 1.3 million Wisconsinites get some Medicaid help, and Trump and the Republicans in the Congress are going to cut Medicaid, and people are going to get hurt. And she's drawn attention to that, and she's fighting back against that, and that's just what we need.
Wow, 1.3 million Wisconsin citizens on some sort of Medicaid or disability or something, and are deriving a benefit from that program. And Tammy Baldwin isn't out there asking folks, are you a Dem or Republican? Because you know what? Doesn't matter. If you're on this program and it gets cut, it won't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican or a non-voter. You will be impacted by the decisions that this administration is making. And let's remind everyone why we are going through this process because Donald Trump wants to give $4.5 trillion in tax cuts to the wealthy. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're banging our head against the wall. That's why Tammy Baldwin's out talking about the impact of the reduction of services and Medicaid to 1.3 million citizens. That's why
Exactly.
our next guest. Go ahead.
I want to interrupt here just because,
Please.
Tammy made this point herself. She said, we need to show the president and congressional Republicans what cuts to Medicaid would mean to Wisconsinites, show them that their tax cut for their wealthy friends will be life or death to some Wisconsinites, and show them that we're fighting back. That's our Senator Tammy Baldwin. She's on a hands-off Medicaid tour. She's speaking up here at a time where we need all our elected representatives to speak up. At least those with a conscience. I'm not talking to you, Van Orden.
Well, I mean, and for the policy of at least the directive from House Speaker Mike Johnson is don't have town halls. I mean, really, hey, we got a great, we got all this COVID going around, and what are we going to do? Everyone's testing positive. Well, just don't test anymore. It'll be fine. Hey, all these people are mad at our town halls. Everyone's mad at us. What should we do? Should we change our policies? Should we change our minds? Should we reevaluate our positions? No, just don't have town halls anymore. I mean,
Whisk it under the rug. Bury your head in the sand.
Way to represent the constituents. Oh, and then when they actually do a town hall, and heaven forbid someone get mad at them about the various cuts and things that they're saying they're going to do against veterans and farmers and the poor and the elderly. I mean, the only people that I don't know who's going to get a negative impact from the policies of this administration are the very ones that we're going through these quote unquote exercises for. The 1%, the billionaires and the millionaires, man. They're going to be fine, but that's why we're doing. Those folks aren't showing up at the town halls, right?
No.
Those folks are scratching the checks and meeting in the smoke-filled back rooms, right? These folks that are showing up, they're not all, hard lunatic lefty, whatever you want to call it. These
Outside
folks,
agitators, that's what he calls them.
Yeah, outside, as they came from outside inside, because you're in their town, you represent their district. Yeah, they're coming in, they're telling you what they think. And even if they voted for someone else, or even if they didn't vote, hell, even if they voted for you, maybe they should listen. Maybe you should listen, Republicans, when these folks are showing up and telling you how concerned they are. Maybe you should take that under advisement. Maybe you should be more worried about whether or not your constituents are able to, feed themselves versus whether or not we need to go through these exercises. So with your vote and the support of your president, you can give tax breaks for billionaires. Folks, come back with us. Julie Bolmar, Executive Director from the Wisconsin Farmers Union. Wisconsin farmers, Wisconsin citizens, Wisconsin's food challenge, they're going to be impacted by this administration. We'll get into it next. 855-752-4842.
Hi, Julie. I see you there.
Hi there. How's it
Hi,
going?
Julie. Can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can.
Perfect. And
How
I can
am I
hear
coming
you.
through? Good?
You're coming through great.
Thanks for joining us, Julie. We'll be on in about 4 minutes,
Awesome.
maybe 5. That's Jess and Dom. Dom is the regular host. I co-host on Wednesdays.
Sometimes
And
fill in.
Jess is the great producer, engineer for the show. And I'm glad you could get in early, so we'll get all set. I'm going to just go get something to drink here.
Awesome.
Non-alcoholic.
Thanks for clarifying. All right, Julie, if you need anything, I'll be able to hear you. Otherwise, I'm going to work on some of the production on my end.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess.
How you been, Julie?
Hanging in there. It's been quite a whirlwind.
Crazy time, isn't it? Wow.
It is crazy. Yeah.
Just keeps getting worse.
Yeah. Every day is something new, it seems like.
And how long have you been head of Farmers Union now?
7 years. Yeah.
And are there elections for that? How does that work?
Executive director is appointed. It's a paid salaried position. And then we have an elected board of directors. We're a membership organization, a co-op, a nonprofit. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was similar to a Wisconsin Democracy Campaign that way.
It sounds like it. Yeah. Yeah.
And where are you located?
Chippewa Falls is our headquarters office, and that's where I'm coming in today.
Okay, neat. It's pretty up there.
Yeah. Looking at the river.
You getting snow yet?
We've kind of luckily been avoided. It went south of us. So it's been a little blustery, but it's nothing like what I hear is happening in other parts of the state. And you guys are coming out of Milwaukee, is that right? Is that where the show's broadcast from?
We're originating from Racine today.
Racine. Okay.
But we're coming out statewide, actually.
Nice.
I'm in
All right,
Madison.
we'll be back in 30 seconds.
Hey, Jess, I've got the word remove over my face in the lower left corner. Can I hit that remove button? Or is that
Don't hit remove.
Is it going to get me out of here?
Yes.
That'd be something I'd do.
All right, 10 seconds.
Welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. It's a talk line. It's a text line. Usually it works. We're working on it right now, but be patient. We appreciate everyone. Matt Rothschild joining me today. Jess PS is on the board, and I'm jazz as hell to introduce to you our next guest. Her name, Julie Bomar. She's the executive director from the Wisconsin Farmers Union. Julie, welcome to the Dom Salvia Show.
Thanks so much for having me.
It is our pleasure. The administration, the federal administration, the Trump administration, making all sorts of changes. And we reported on this quite a bit yesterday. So this is a timely interview. We appreciate you joining us. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel is saying that the Trump administration canceled a program that paid Wisconsin farmers to grow food for food pantries. And one of the statistics that stood out to me that I was unaware of, and it's still kind of shocking to me, is that more than 617,000 Wisconsin residents are food insecure. 617,000 Wisconsin residents are food insecure. Julie, what's your impression on how this is going to impact not only those 617,000 Wisconsin residents, but the farmers that provide that food to those pantries?
It's going to have devastating effects. The local food purchase assistance program has been in effect for several years now. And, COVID really woke us all up, right, to the problems in the supply chain and how we don't really have access to fresh food. If anything happens, it's a fragile food system. And so there were some monies that were made available at that time. And really what happened is it just helped develop a structure that could provide food insecure people with fresh, nutritious, protein-ridden food that was locally grown by farmers, by their neighbors, and it benefited groups of farmers that don't often benefit from the Farm Bill. And it developed a great infrastructure across the entire state so that smaller farmers could actually participate in the food system in a way that they hadn't before. It's had a hell of an impact, and we're really, really upset that contracts and promises are broken.
Apparently, the USDA Deputy Administrator, Jack Tuckwiller, wrote when they sent a letter canceling this program, that this program, quote, no longer effectuates agency priorities. Then
That's
I'm wondering,
bureaucratic talk for you.
what is the USDA priority then, Julie, if not to assist farmers in at least this kind of way? Because farmers get all sorts of other assistance, right? This isn't the only assistance that we as taxpayers provide to our farmers for our agriculture and our food supply chain and all that. Why is it that this one is being targeted, in your opinion?
Well, I think that it was focused on farmers that don't often maybe meet the stereotypical definition of farmer in the United States. And so commodity growers, big commodity growers, may often benefit from subsidy programs, from insurance and benefits like that by way of growing commodities. A lot of the smaller growers, which actually are all across Wisconsin, we have a very diversified agricultural landscape. Many of those farmers do not get to benefit in the same ways. They may be a specialty crop grower, and then you don't get subsidies, from the United States government. You may be growing hay, and you don't get subsidies from the United States government, whereas the big guys, the big boys of it all do. They at least more eligible for it. So this one really targeted those folks that are often left out in the Farm Bill by helping them get into these food systems, these highways, if you will, that literally can distribute food in smaller, more local quantities and qualities.
Folks, you're listening to the Dom Salvia Show. That is Julie Bomar, the executive director from the Wisconsin Farmers Union. According to the reporting, Julie, the program, 289 Wisconsin farms participated in the program, providing $4.2 million worth of food to more than 250 pantries and schools. So this impacts everybody regardless of ideological or political leaning. Julie, I'm assuming you have all sorts of political stripes in your organization. How are folks reacting to this?
Well, it's really been interesting to watch all of the federal actions and how they're impacting folks. We have a big tent organization, lots of different kinds of growers, and we did a survey just a few weeks ago to see how the federal decisions were affecting people, and all different kinds of stories came out. And so it kind of depends on what sector you're in and how you've been directly impacted, but the stories are varied, and almost universally there's been negative impact on our members. There are a few who wrote in that they're hopeful that maybe tariffs and things like that will help them in some way because there may be a smaller producer and they're hoping that the local folks will have to buy more food from them because the costs are going to go up on imported foods. So, there has been some differences in opinion, but the vast majority of folks that have written in and have showed up at our town halls are saying this negatively impacts them.
Julie, do you have farmers with different political leanings. Do you know any that have expressed little buyer's remorse to you? They voted for Trump, and now, holy smokes, he's taking our programs away. He's taking our subsidies away.
I haven't had anybody just come up and say they had buyer's remorse. I mean, certainly farmers are not a monolith. We all know that, right? There are differences of opinion. They may say, I kind of am waiting to see what happens in this area. I don't like what's happening over here. I think it's an overreach. So I think it's not necessarily an easy yes or no, or buyer's remorse or not. But a lot of folks, of course, didn't vote for Trump either. So they didn't go into this with those kinds of expectations.
I drive down 94 between Madison and Milwaukee, and I'm always surprised at these huge Trump signs in the farmers' fields. And I'm just scratching my head, what is it that Trump has given these folks that make them so zealous in favor of him? Do you have any clue on that?
Well, I think we've had 4 decades, multiple administrations to demonstrate that the Farm Bill doesn't work for all farmers. And so whether you're Democrat or Republican, you probably have a beef with the way that the federal government is managing helping shape the food system. And so, there's a lot of folks that really believe that big ag and big pharma need to go, and they maybe saw a disruptor that could change and help shake those things loose. I think that certainly is an opinion by some. Others may have a lot of trouble with the regulatory control that we see at the state and the federal level as well. So there's a large factor of reasons that people may choose this. I think one thing that I can say that working in the farm community for a long time, that farmers believe contracts should be honored. And so that one's really, they're not being honored.
Not being honored. And one of those contracts is to schools. I mean, fresh food for school lunches. Those are being cut. And, you know, I thought this was a great program so the kids can have something, you know, fresher than tater tots that are deep fried, you know, when the local farmers bring in food to the school. And how many schools are going to be impacted by this cut on this program?
Oh, there's 30 just up in my region in the small few county area. It's going to be massive if you look across the state. And we have close to 300 food pantries that are going to be impacted by the termination of the local food purchase assistance program, close to 300 farmers. It is going to have a big impact. I also happen to sit on a board of directors for a local food bank, and they're very concerned about how they're going to be procuring fresh meat, fresh eggs, and, you know, all those high quality things that they were getting from the program. And especially because they were counting on it. Remember, a lot of the farmers are already planting right now in their greenhouses. They agreed to uphold their end of the bargain, and they're put out the work, they put out the money, and now that's going to be cut. That's what's so irritating, I think, to many, is that it's just a matter of integrity.
So that violation of that contract, of that word that the government gave them, is so galling to them right now, on top of the fact that they're going to have an economic negative impact too.
Absolutely.
Folks, you're listening to the Dom Salvia Show. That is Julie Bomar, Executive Director from the Wisconsin Farmers Union. Matt Rothschild joining us today as well. Some of the reporting continuing on this Stepping Stones of Dunn County. They use this program to provide 50,000 pounds of food to its clients. And apparently this pantry feeds more than 11% of Dunn County. Now, I know some of these counties don't have a lot of people, but 11% is a lot of people. That's a big percentage of the population. I don't care how many people are in that county, Julie. And this is all to save, if I'm understanding the math here, is this like a $4-some million program? Is that's what's being cut here?
Yeah, exactly. And it was really run efficiently. How much more efficient can you get than shipping locally, right?
Right.
And the money stays in the economy. It's not going out to Walmart and then to Arkansas. I mean, this is like literally an economic booster for rural economies as well. So it was run effectively. And I lived in Dunn County for 30 some years. I remember talking to physicians. I did a lot of research on rural poverty in a previous career. There are people who are malnourished, not just like they cannot leave their community to go in to these food pantries. So these pop-up pantries and things that they have in rural Wisconsin are critical for people who cannot afford to even drive into town. And so it is incredibly serious. And I think, you know, most people, regardless of their political affiliation, agree that we should try to keep things efficient and local and do the best that we can for those folks that are literally, malnourished.
Well, and I think it was just brought up, and I want to reiterate it again. This is fresh farm food. You know, these aren't bags of chips. These aren't, processed by big food manufacturing. This is money that's being circulated through the local economy more than once. Right, we heard people about that are hiring some part-time help to help them in these endeavors. Well, that also it creates employment, it creates food security, it creates a secure food supply lines, as you mentioned before. COVID really exposed a lot of these concerns. So as an investment on the dollar, it's hard to think of another program that would have the impact that this program, and it's I hate to say $4 million is a little not a big program, but it's really not, especially when we consider some of the monies that, the president of the United States spends when he goes in Air Force One to go golfing, I believe at about $3.5 million per when he's got to pull out the plane. These efforts are being done, Julie, to effectuate a justification for trillions of dollars in tax cuts. And people can have an opinion whether or not they think that's righteous or just. Are your members and the people in your communities, do they recognize that this is the impetus for all of this? That's why we're doing this, is to justify and pay for tax cuts?
I think that more work needs to be done on connecting the dots there for sure, Dom. I think that a lot of folks were excited, maybe about more efficient government or wasteful programs being targeted, and they maybe didn't sign up for the kinds of cuts that we're seeing, and they weren't sure where they were going to be targeted. But rural America is going to be hit particularly lopsidedly in all of this, and where people, I think, are starting to put it together.
Do you have a moment to come around on the next segment as well? I want to ask about tariffs and what you saw as the impact currently and perhaps what was done in the past. But while we have just this one segment, appreciate your time. The local politicians in these areas, has there been any discussions? Have they shown up at any of the meetings? Have they provided any insight, right, left, regardless of their political leanings? Are they involved in the community, and what are their thoughts? Have you heard anything?
We've heard a lot from local elected officials. We did have a town hall that we sponsored a few weeks ago. We offered it open to representatives. We're a nonpartisan organization. We invite everybody. And the only folks to show up were on the Democratic side of the aisle. Although I have seen, signs that GOP representatives are visiting food pantries and food banks, so that's good to see. But yeah, we were disappointed that they didn't show up.
Folks are listening to the Dom Salvia Show. Come back with us. Julie Bomar, Executive Director from Wisconsin Farmers Union. Matt Rothschild as well. Jess P.S. working on the board. I want to get into some of the tariff conversations and what you're hearing on the current situation. Plus, I want to get your feedback on how it went the last time Donald Trump started a trade war and how he paid the farmers. Come back with us. 855-752-4842.
American dream is killing me when it's all double talk of insanity. The American dream is killing me.
Excellent segment. We are going to take 2 minutes and then we'll be back, Julie.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's great having you on, Julie.
Thanks for asking. Appreciate it.
One minute. $30. $10 seconds.
Welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show. Thank you so much for listening. You got Matt Rothschild joining me today as a co-host. Just PS is on the board. And Julie Bomar, the executive director from Wisconsin Farmers Union, joining us for one more segment. Julie, thank you for sticking around. Certainly appreciate it. Last time around, when Trump administration first came around, we got into a trade war. And he ended up scratching checks directly to farmers to the tune, I believe, of $16 billion in one time. Another time was like it was almost like $30 billion that was handed out from a New Deal era program under Donald Trump directly to the farmers because of the retaliation that we were getting in the trade wars to keep them afloat, keep them going. We got to have a food supply, right? So for $30 billion, and this wasn't a loan. I mean, this wasn't an auto bailout. This was just cash out, and I believe it was during an election. So I have all sorts of issues with that. But I want to get your sense when we were living through that. How were the farmers reacting to the first round of tariff wars? Let's call it.
Well, as an ag organization that serves mainly small and medium-sized farmers, I can tell you that our members felt like the bailout was disproportionately beneficial to the largest growers. And so, then especially commodity growers, soybeans, corn, that kind of thing. Whereas if you look across the entire sector, we're exporting specialty cheeses, cranberries and ginseng. I mean, it is a diversified agriculture system that we operate in. So when only a certain segment of the biggest producers are benefiting from it, you're going to hear foul from, the smaller growers for sure. And we lose markets, right? We just lose markets. If you're a commodity grower as well, you should be concerned about China and Brazil stepping up and taking over those market shares. That
was going to be my next thing. I think ginseng was one of the things that was really hurt, and they went and found other buyers in other countries. And have we rebounded to your understanding from the repercussions of that first trade war when those markets were lost? Have we gotten them back? We got a fraction back. What's your experience been?
I think it's all over the board, actually, Dom. I mean, you see some that have bounced back. Farming is up and down all the time anyway. Yeah. And so we use subsidies to try to stabilize things more on the demand side of things. When the demand goes down or markets crash, then we just try to fill it in with cash rather than having a more stabilized system where maybe we are monitoring supplies better, like some other countries do. Where we really can try to have a little bit more control on the brakes, if you will, for the hot and the cold of agriculture markets. But nevertheless, it will hurt things, and especially now with our big kerfuffle with Europe, I think those folks are not going to come back very easy. We're doing some permanent damage in our global relationships, and I think they're not going to come back to the table very quickly.
It must be almost impossible for farmers to figure out what to do here. You mentioned it's planting season right now. We're coming up. Our biggest export partners here are, guess what? Canada, Mexico, China, and Europe's got to be right behind that. And so, how much do you grow? Are you going to be able to sell all you got? Are your markets going to dry up because of these tariffs? There just must be all these questions swirling around. How do farmers wrestle with that?
I've heard some express large concerns about the input costs going up in particular. So we get 85% of our potash from Canada. That's essential for our type of soils and growing, having healthy enough soil to grow, especially commodity crops. And so when 85% of the potash market is dependent on a relationship with Canada, you can bet that people are concerned, and they may see hundreds of percentage increases going up on that. And we can't store enough potash to build ahead for that. We can only hold it in the supply sheds that we have. And so people are very concerned, and that won't hit until later in the growing season. So you bet farmers are concerned. We've heard a lot about that.
Yeah, I just don't know how you plan for all this.
How do you plan? Mm-hmm.
It is very difficult, and being a farmer means you have to have a lot of knowledge about a lot of things, and then above and beyond that, the things you cannot control, they got to fall in line as well in order to make it profitable. And it's more than just profit, as mentioned. This is feeding the United States. This is feeding the world. This is what we do. You brought up regulation a little bit, and you said we fill the holes with cash. What's the appetite for greater government regulation to kind of level off some of the peaks and valleys that we experience in the industry?
Well, there's some debate going on for sure in farm country about that. I can tell you, I've never met a farmer ever that wants to get they would rather have their profit come from the market, not from the government. That is a universal theme. They want the market to work for them. And so I think that there's different ideas on how to do that, whether you work more on the demand or on the supply side. But I can tell you, a lot of folks are paying directly out of their farm gate profits to pay for exporting and developing relationships overseas. That's called the checkoff system. They actually are required by law to pay for things and for exporting and developing those relationships, and those relationships are being destroyed. So you can bet that your dairy producers and your pork producers are mad about that.
Well, Julie, I don't know if you know this, but I used to work at my neighbor's dairy farm. I tell everybody, hardest work I ever had.
Yes.
Easy doing work with you. Julie Bomar, Executive Director from the Wisconsin Farmers Union. Thank you so much for coming around and edifying our audience. Please do so again. We appreciate it.
Thanks for uplifting those voices. Appreciate it.
All right, folks, you're listening to the Dom Salvia Show. Matt Rothschild, Jess PS, come back on the other side. Going to hit some of the national news. John Roberts, what's he's doing? The Fed, they had a meeting today. We'll see what happens there. Plus, updates on the crap show that is going on right now. Stick around, 855-752-4842. Maybe the phones will be fixed by then.
1 minute, Matt. Twenty seconds.
Broadcasting across the state of Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and around the world on the Civic Media app. This is the Dom Salvia Show. And now, here's your host, Dom Salvia.
And welcome to the Dom Salvia Show. Thank you so much for listening. You can be a part. Phones are up and running. Text lines are working. 855-752-4842. 855-75-CIVIC. I'm sure our fine engineering crew had everything to do with that fix. Or maybe it was just me doing the fonts, making the music start by hitting the jukebox. Matt Rothschild joining me as the co-host today, formerly of the Progressive Magazine, formerly of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, currently a friend of ours and frequent Civic Media contributor. Matt, thanks for joining us, man.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Julie Bomar was great, wasn't she?
Oh,
Wisconsin Farmers Union, such a great group.
Yeah, really appreciate Julie Bomar. She's the executive director over at the Wisconsin Farmers Union, joining us for the last couple of segments. She rocks solid. And, I appreciate, the fact that this is a nonpartisan issue. Everybody got to eat, Matt. You know what I mean? And there's conservatives that are in farming. There's liberals that are in farming. There's folks that don't even give a damn about the government that are in farming. Hell, some folks farming just to feed themselves. And we do have, unfortunately, the circumstances that we are in as a state, as a country, more and more folks are relying on some of these programs, and to go and gut this local Wisconsin program. It's not just here; it's other states as well. I think there's some reporting in New Mexico about how this is going to be challenging for those food challenged folks in other states as well. So, and don't forget, folks, this is all because of tax breaks for the rich. That's why we're cutting a $4 million project or program right here in the state of Wisconsin, so billionaires can make a little bit more. Matt, let's move on, if we could, to the national stage. A rolling constitutional crisis. I mean, I'm not clear how to characterize the varied efforts of the Trump administration and their different court cases. But it seemingly is getting pretty close, and it got so bad, in fact, that Chief Justice John Roberts had to jump in. This guy. Now, how long is it going to be before he's some sort of woke lunatic left person in Trump's mind or in MAGA's world? I want to get a little bit from this Atlantic article out there, and then I want to talk with you, Matt, and of course our fair audience as well, about where we stand as a country. Now, we know that the Trump administration was battling this judge because of these Venezuelans that were deported to El Salvador. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but bear with me. Apparently, they defied this judge's order, and the Justice Department attorneys tried to get a hearing canceled, then refused to tell the judge and suggested he be removed from the case. Wait, what? This is what the DOJ said. And then Trump himself entered the fray via his, Truthy Social. Here's what Trump had to say about this issue. This radical left lunatic of a judge, a troublemaker and agitator who was sadly appointed by Barack Hussein Obama, was not elected president. This judge, like many of the crooked judges I am forced to appear before, should be impeached. Capitals, exclamation points, 3 of them. So he really means it. Now, as the Atlantic reports, that was enough to provoke a reply from Chief Justice John Roberts, who seldom makes public comments. And here's his quote. For more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. Now, for Roberts, according to The Atlantic, that qualifies as a sharp response. Let's stop there. Matt Rothschild, your thoughts on the Chief Justice's comments?
Well, Chief Justice Roberts disgusts me, frankly, and is one of the people most responsible for the predicament that we're in. This authoritarianism, this fascism that we're facing, and getting worse every day. Chief Justice Roberts and the other conservatives on the U.S. Supreme Court delayed Jack Smith and the effort to prosecute Donald Trump for the crimes that Donald Trump committed on January 6th. And then they gave him a huge get-out-of-jail-free card and said nothing that a president does with their duties as either commander-in-chief or chief enforcer and executor of the laws, he can be prosecuted for. So basically, they gave him a machine gun just to, shoot holes into the Constitution and ruin the checks and balances system that we have. And so he did that on the one hand, 8 months ago, and now all of a sudden he's shocked that Donald Trump is violating the Constitution. I mean, give me a break. There are few people more responsible for the crisis we're in than Chief Justice Roberts. It's just, he's got to stand up for the court now while his judges are being attacked, but he brought on this predicament.
He did. Well, don't you know, Matt, the normal appellate review process exists for this purpose. As The Atlantic points out, and this is something that I was pondering about myself, the statement is notable for what it leaves out. It leaves out any acknowledgement of the substantive dispute in the case, which is whether Trump is defying court orders. Roberts seems more concerned about rhetorical attacks on the personal integrity or employment status of judges than he does with a systemic attack on the judiciary as a whole. And The Atlantic goes on to point out, well, maybe at some point, Roberts is being cautious here because perhaps this could come before him. As mentioned, perhaps he doesn't want to weigh in on Trump's apparent willingness to defy courts because he expects these matters to reach the Supreme Court and doesn't want to appear to be an interested party. Or perhaps Roberts is less bothered because he believes the president will prevail on these matters at the Supreme Court. Trump is effective at destroying norms because he forces institutions and individuals to either succumb to his partisan logic or avoid the fight and thus cede the debate to him. I thought it was notable as well. I mean, he's talking about, you can't impeach a judge, that's why you got to apollo for it. But what about the fact that this guy's out there openly defying your orders, or at least the court's orders? Anything to say about that, Chief Justice Roberts? Right,
and then you have Homeland Security Holman saying, I don't care about judges' orders. I don't care about anything. We're going to keep going. Well, that's the attitude of other people in Trump world. Well, that's not how our democracy is supposed to work here. When a judge says you can't do this, you can't do it. And these guys are doing it anyway. They're flying Venezuelan alleged gang members, to El Salvador after the judge told them not to fly and told the plane in the air to turn around. They didn't do either of those things. And now they don't even want to give the judge, the coordinates of when the plane took off, for God's sake.
Right. What? And the judges, according to The Hill, are giving them plenty of time, like until, again, tomorrow. Not just, Monday, not just Tuesday, now apparently until tomorrow to come up with that. It seems, I don't know. I think sometimes I'm hopeful that they're trying to give them as much rope to hang themselves with, that kind of attitude. But I'm also looking back at what happened here, Matt, over the last 4 to 8, 10 years, and how this guy's continued to evade consequence for his unconstitutional, illegal, fraudulent, abusive attitudes and actions.
And that's who this guy is. I mean, he is a playground bully. The guy on the playground who said, you told him you got to stop doing that. And he says, who's going to make me? Or you in what army? And that's who Trump is. He's like Stalin, who said, how many divisions does the Pope have, when someone told him that, the Pope didn't like his policies? Well, how many divisions does Chief Roberts have? How many divisions does the Senate and the House have? They've got none. So when push comes to shove, and
Sergeant at Arms, baby, Sergeant at Arms, go get him.
Trump loves, push coming to shove, and he's going to continue doing this. And who's going to stop him? I mean, that's the predicament we're in when Chief Justice Roberts said anything the president does is legal, as part of his duties as chief executive.
It's almost like that ruling is coming back to bite them in the ass right now.
Yeah, and what's he going to do? Oops, I made a mistake. Sorry, I shouldn't have given him this blank check. Sorry, I shouldn't have given him this bazooka to blow up our Constitution. It didn't take a genius to figure out that's who this guy was, and that's what he'd do if he got power again, or any other megalomaniac, narcissist president who would come into the Oval Office. That's why it was such a disgraceful decision. And he made the bed. Now he doesn't want to sleep in it.
Well, maybe, as our texter from Madison, Ken, points out, maybe the Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity was a calculated setup of Donald Trump to get him to do something so bad that impeachment and removal would be unavoidable. I mean,
well, that's a wish, though. I mean, you're going to get
worse-
impeachment with a Republican-dominated Senate and House. That's just not going to happen.
Worse than calling the mob to D.C. to stop the counting of the votes. I mean, come on, man. It could be worse. I mean, it could easily be worse. The bar has been lowered constantly since this man has entered the political arena. And I didn't think that could happen, but it did. 855-752-4842, 855-75-Civic. Phones are working. All right. Got it going on. Dale from Wausau. You're up. Happy days, Dale. Welcome. What do you got for us?
Yeah, thanks for taking my call, Dom. Say, I was on your show a few days ago, and I had said that there is something strategically and geographically important to the Trump administration for this push to buy or make Greenland part of the United States. I think that something that Trump is interested in regards to Greenland is for a refueling and staging area for American and Russian aircraft and ships. I have heard also the talk about Trump looking at possibly taking rare earth minerals from Greenland. The smart money, I think, is on a refueling and staging area for American and Russian aircraft and ships, because Putin has eyes on Alaska and Trump has eyes on Canada, and Greenland to our east would be a perfect spot for Putin's aims and Trump's aims.
Thank you, Dale from Wausau. Appreciate it. And here's the thing, and I get what you're saying, and from a strategic standpoint, perhaps those are some of the thoughts going through their heads. Certainly, we know that Putin likes to. He wants to rebuild the USSR. He wants to build like the good old days, right? And he wants Ukraine. And apparently, perhaps this administration is willing to give up at least some of that to Putin. But we don't have to, buy or own, a country. We didn't buy or own Saudi Arabia when we found out, I don't know, during the first Gulf War that we had secret bases in Saudi Arabia that we were going to use. I mean, do we own Saudi or any of the other countries that we have military installations in? Do we own them? No, this is just crazy talk, man. I think in some regard, Donald Trump wants to be Putin so bad that he's like, well, if Putin can get Ukraine, man, I want Canada. Just because it's right there and, we subsidize them, quote unquote, which is, of course, total bunk. Folks, come back with us. Matt Rothschild, Just PS, is on the board. 855-752-4842, 855-75-Civic. Are you a Dem? And are you mad enough? We'll talk about that next.
Not to put too fine a point on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul.
30 seconds. Ten seconds.
Welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842. Matt Rothschild joining us today. Jess P.S. working hard on the board and on the lines, 855-75-CIVIC. Are you angry? Are you a Dem? Are you angry? Are you angry at the Democratic Party leadership? Not necessarily right here in the state of Wisconsin, but perhaps the senatorial leadership when they went for the continuing resolution without getting anything back for it. We'll get to that in a moment. 855-75-CIVIC. Joe from Madison, you are up next. Welcome, Joe. What do you got for us?
Well, I'd like to go with the expansionist program that Dale had made mention of, and I just wanted to comment on there. And I would really be interested in your thoughts on this too, Matt, because you're somebody that looks at trends and has been around and been able to see how changes are happening, and I think they're happening really fast within Europe. Germany just signed off on $1 trillion package to up their military, and Volkswagen said, "Yeah, we'll be there to help you out with that," which kind of brings up a few memories.
Mm-hmm.
There is a video of France, one of their nuclear-powered subs, just popped up outside of Nova Scotia, Canada. Interesting. 300 miles from the U.S. just within the last week. And in addition, there was a photo of a French plane, military plane, that was landing in one of those icy airfields in Greenland, and just had to make sure that there were pictures just so we knew, what's going on. The F-35, Canada and Portugal saying, don't think we want those American planes. And then within the countries of Europe, Poland, 200,000 people in their military now. They want to up it to 500,000. They are talking about compulsory service for all men, and like they have in Switzerland, talking about land mining the borders and looking around for nukes. And then just this week, The Guardian publishes an article that every household in France is receiving a 20-page document that gives them information on how they should prepare for natural disasters, okay, but then also nuclear attacks and warfare, the kinds of things that you should have in your household to get by. And then we have word that apparently we've had this forever and ever, but the Supreme Allied Commando of NATO has always been a U.S. four-star general. And they are looking at getting rid of that because of, quote, consolidation for cost cutting. This is fascinating to me. This is like bye-bye Miss American Pie in terms of Europe. And then, as we said, what may be going on in Canada and Greenland. So I'd be really curious, and I think this is certainly a subject that we'll be returning to, but it just seems like there are a lot of different threads in a lot of different countries that would make one think that things are shifting, things are rolling in a different direction. And I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, Joe. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, there is a tectonic shift going on that Trump is bringing about. I mean, he's basically kissing Europe off and telling them, guess what, folks, you're on your own. And Europe is realizing that. France is considering using its nuclear weapons as an umbrella for the rest of NATO, knowing that Trump can't be relied on. And what Trump is, as Joe put it, is an expansionist. He views himself as a 19th century imperialist. That's why he keeps invoking President McKinley. McKinley led us in the Spanish-American War and went down to Cuba. And Trump loves him. He mentions him all the time. And I think the kind of new global order that we're going to be seeing is Trump, Putin, and maybe Xi of China, too, coming together and saying, yeah, we can take Greenland. You guys, Xi, you can have Taiwan. Putin, you can have part of Ukraine. And let's just play big power 19th century politics.
Right, the
again.
spheres of influence of our, our immediate neighbors. Well, that's who you get to control. Everybody, we all agree
Exactly.
on that. Yeah, great idea. Anybody asking the other people in the spheres of influence whether they want that kind
Not
of
at all.
control? No, you don't get to ask that question. American Pie, good old boys drinking whiskey and rye. 855-752-4842, 842-855-75 Civic. Bob from Edison texts in. It hasn't been a quarter of a year, and we have at least 4 to take. OMG. Yeah, it seems like a lot.
It's
Matt,
gonna be a long 4 years.
Well, and that's fine, man. We'll keep pushing back. That this is what it is. This is what we do, and I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to take it anymore. This administration invoking this Aliens Enemy Act, right? I mean, we're not at war, right? Isn't this something we're supposed to do when we're at war? I mean, maybe he's thinking, well, we're at war with the Constitution, so I can get away with this. But it seems like, I don't know, call it overreach, to put it bluntly.
It's an act from 1798, and it says whenever there's a declared war between the United States and any foreign nation or government. Well, there isn't a declared war. Congress hasn't declared war. That's what's supposed to happen under our Constitution. And Trump issues an executive order that says we're at war, but that's not how it's supposed to work. And he thinks he can issue an executive order saying he's king.
And what MAGA's going along with it. Like, people think, well, this is how it's supposed to be. This is what we voted for. I'm thinking, no, I don't think so. And every time this administration, seeks and reaches into its grab bag to try to pull out some additional authoritarianism, I think they're justly being met with resistance because we're not at war. Well, I mean, and it doesn't say police action. We did a lot of police actions, right, Matt? I mean, when was the last time we were actually officially at war? So he's pulling, they're just pulling every trick that they can to try to justify the expanded executive branch power. Let's call it authoritarianism. Doesn't believe in the separation of power, doesn't believe that the court should be able to defy him. He's already got, at least for, the next couple of years, year and a half, that power will be waning soon. The influence that he has over Congress, these Republicans aren't showing up to their town halls anymore. They don't want to take the beating, so they're saying, "Oh, no more of that. We'll continue to do our thing." But 100 days is going to come and go pretty quick. I mean, it's moving real fast, and we're going to see what the ultimate reactions are. We've seen the markets. We've gone up and down. Now, the markets are up a little bit today. Didn't have to start out with the closing bell discussion because the markets are up a bit. The Fed, they met today. What's happening on the Fed? They set the interest rates. What they decide? We're not changing the rates. So anyone wanted to refi like me, or anyone's out there trying to get some lower mortgage rates or lower credit card rates, you got to have to wait. But what they did do, they lowered their growth forecasts for the next several quarters. Well, that's not great. Why are they doing that? Of course, because of the actions of this administration and the impact that tariffs and uncertainty will have in the marketplace. Come back with us, 855-752-4842. Are you a Dem and are you mad? Or are you a Republican and scared of your constituents? Either way, come back with us.
8:30.
And welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show, 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. Phone lines are up. Text lines are working. Matt Rothschild joining me today. Just PS working hard as well. I want to get to, I don't know, I guess the environments in which the different political parties are operating these days. But we've got some callers lining up. Let's get to them. We'll start with Mark from the SAC. You will be first. Welcome, sir. What do you got for us?
Yeah, after Putin kept Trump hanging on the telephone, I couldn't help but think of the old Blondie song there, just hanging on the telephone. That that song kept running through my head. That I'm just surprised that it just hasn't been turned to some of our old spy novels and movies, where even our allies are turning on, attempting to poison Trump, and it is just because he's just betraying everybody. I mean, we have no more allies in Europe anymore. I mean, for God's sakes, Canada's been a close ally for decades and decades.
You mean our 51st state, and I guess to your point, as we mentioned in the last segment, these folks are pulling further and further away from us, Matt, and this is we're only a couple months into this Trump administration. He's this administration, this president is being very clear about who he supports and who he doesn't. And he is a big fan of the pooty poot, man. He's willing to sit on the line, hang on the line. What is this, ELO? Mark, you know what I'm saying? He's going to hang on the line. I'm sorry, I'm talking to my buddies over here, we're drinking some vodka. You got to wait there, Mr. President Trump. I mean, when the strength that Donald Trump thinks he projects is an overreaction to overcompensating for his massive insecurity and desire to be someone like Putin.
Totally. He wants to be like Putin. He wants to be like Xi. And of course, Xi said Xi's president for life, essentially. And Trump once said, "Oh, I wish we could do that here sometime."
That'd be great. That's a great idea. 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. David from San Francisco, you will be next. Welcome, David. What are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dom. I don't know if you're old enough to remember 1991 when the Soviet Union fell apart, but I think that Trump is trying to replicate that time. If you think about the nation of the Soviet Union falls apart entirely, and their ruble is worth zero. You couldn't, a bucket full of them wouldn't buy a Coke.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody with out of town money, if you had lira, if you had pounds, if you had francs, you had any kind of cash, you could buy farms, you could buy apartment buildings, you could buy factories, and that's how the oligarchs got started. Those guys were smugglers, they were con artists, they had the organized crime going during the Soviet Union, and they had plenty of cash, and they just swooped in and bought everything. Well, now, the other day, and this is about a week ago, when Trump declared his national emergency, alien enemies national emergency, Congress had the ability to compete against it. And there's a nice piece on last Friday's Rachel Maddow show, and she describes how Congress has 15 days to compete against the national emergency, amend it, cease it, whatever. And so Mike Johnson froze time. And so we are stuck in last Thursday.
Yeah. It's all one day until the end of the session, right, David?
Exactly. Now, that also means that rent day never shows up. So if you live in Trump Towers, you don't have to pay rent until the end of Congress. And Harlan Crow owns land all across America. Harlan Crow, I think that's crowdevelopments.com. That's the guy that's been buying Clarence Thomas.
Oh, yeah. No, they're just friends. They're just friends, David. They're just. Thank you for the call. I'm going to keep moving. They're just friends, Matt. You're my friend, but I don't spend $1 million to fly on my yacht, bro. You know what I'm saying?
And I don't have to report that trip or the other trip or the house you bought for my mom. No, just among friends.
Oh my God! But to David's point, yes, this Republican Congress is just as responsible, right? I mean, they have the ability to push back on this overreach from this administration, and they are declining to do so.
Yeah, almost no Republican other than Murkowski is speaking up right now.
Oh, speaking of Murkowski, thank you for that. Let's talk about that briefly as well, and we'll get to your calls, 855-752-4842. Murkowski says that few Senate Republicans are willing to speak out against actions by the Trump administration and Elon Musk because most fear for their political lives. Oh, what? I mean, isn't there always a political risk, Matt? I mean, that's in politics. It kind of means there's going to be a political risk one way or the other. Just a quote here, if I may. I get criticized for what I say, and everyone else is like, how come no one else is saying anything? Well, figure it out, because they're looking at how many things are being thrown at me, and it's like, maybe I should just duck and cover, Murkowski said during an appearance at the Alaska State Capitol in Juneau. That's why you've got everyone just zip-lip, not saying a word, because they're afraid they're going to be taken down. They're going to be primaried. They're going to be given names in the media. We cannot be cowed into not speaking up. But I think, Murkowski, good luck there, man. I mean, maybe you won't be, but everybody else is. And when you're afraid, and I'm not even talking just politically afraid, because I've seen reports that some of these folks are literally, physically afraid of their constituents. I mean, if you are elected by a group of people that you're afraid is going to hang Mike Pence, maybe you should reconsider your political leanings.
Get a different group of friends. And, but it is pathetic if you're an elected official and the only thing that you're concerned about, you're not concerned about your integrity. You're not concerned about your principles. You're just concerned about your seat. I gotta keep the little power that I have. That's disgraceful.
So that's the Republican side. Now on the Democratic side, as the Raw story points out, analyst says an angry base is a motivated base. Perhaps the livid Dems may have gotten the kick that they needed. Well, I don't know about that yet. We'll get there a little bit, but more of your calls as well. 855-752-4842. The Republican parties are scared politically and physically of their constituents, and the Democratic Party is ignoring what their constituents certainly want. I mean, everybody except one person in the Democratic House voted against this thing. And what? Chuck Schumer got nothing for something. And why?
It's time for Chuck Schumer to go. It's time for the old guard to retire. Get out of the way. You're getting in the way of progress here.
Yeah. I mean, when Pelosi's calling out Schumer, getting in the way of progress. And Pelosi was obviously very talented. She kept her house in order. She got some things done. But again, still part of the old guard, man. People are 80-some years old, yo. I mean, come on.
Little fresh blood would be nice.
You think maybe someone like young, like 65, would be great. It'd be great. Someone that you get on your pickup basketball team and make a couple of threes. 855-752-4842. Cam from Appleton, my old stomping grounds. Welcome, Cam. What do you got for us?
6 more years and I could be president.
See?
Yeah. So first, something a little jokey, but it's real quick. I promise. I had a dream. I was eating soup that was too hot, and the SpaghettiOs flipped over, and it was your face. And you reminded me in that dream of when I told you and Crute originally that we needed to pay attention to Elon Musk. And I actually remembered. It was back during the last Super Bowl. Musk was at the Super Bowl with a Russian propagandist, like national propagandist that from Russia itself, and he was hanging out with her the entire time. So there's that. But then you guys earlier were talking about we're not at war with anyone right now. Yesterday or the day before, he added into one of his executive orders language that changed illicit use of fentanyl is considered a weapon of mass destruction. And I know the cartels are creating truces between each other right now. So because they're anticipating U.S. troops coming in at some point. I don't know why anyone would want to take a play out of Cheney and Bush's book, but we're going to get Iraq War 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Thank you for the call, Cam. I got to tell you, I don't know that the Mexican people and or government would be too happy about, I don't know, targeted airstrikes in Mexico. I mean, here's a problem with this whole thing is, apparently, there's a lot of people in this country that want to buy the drugs, man. I mean, let's just be honest about this. And a lot, I would consider most of the smuggling is being done by Americans. So if you're going after, this terrorist fentanyl, and again, Congress has to declare war. President can write all the executive orders he wants. He can write an executive order calling me a 6'9" black man. Doesn't make it so. You know what I'm saying? So he can do whatever he wants in that regard. But if you're going to seriously go after it and consider fentanyl or any sort of illicit quote unquote drug use to be fair game, well then you better be ready for some targeted attacks on the border, in big cities in this country, in small towns in this country, because lots of people are using that drug and lots of people are in the business of trafficking those drugs. And you can't just go after the ones that are perhaps assembling it, manufacturing it with a different, obviously there's different ingredients to make this stuff. You still have to go after the supply line. You don't just fight at the front line. You attack the supply lines as well. You attack the infrastructure. You attack the energy. I mean, look what Putin's doing. That's what you got to get ready for. Now, unless you're ready for, dead Americans in the street, because if we go and start bombing Mexico because of their drug manufacturing, aren't they going to start bombing us because of our drug use and trafficking? Seems like fair game to me, Matt.
And the president of Mexico is making the point that, if there wasn't all this consumption north of the border, there wouldn't be this problem. So there is some comprehension going on down there.
I mean, I'm serious. And to my humble opinion, I know these things are terrible, and I've had friends that have died from opioid use. So it's not like I'm not sympathetic to the cause. But I'm also one of those folks that think, hey, people want to do what they want to do and knock themselves out. I mean, they should be able to do that. And I'm not a fan. Not my thing. But we've been dealing with the drug war, quote unquote, for a long time, and it is constantly goes against the minorities. It constantly allows for the rich white folks to get off on a lesser charge. I mean, the disparities are historic, and it really hasn't done anything to curb the use, because you know what, people want to use it. That's why it's happening. And drug addiction in and of itself, those addictions, those are health care issues. Those are health and mental issues. These are not matters, in my opinion, of law enforcement, man. We did this during Prohibition. It wasn't so long ago, Matt, that you couldn't buy the drinks, man. You couldn't have a drink. People are dying from bathtub gin. Like, people are dying from drugs that are using fentanyl in them to kick them up a bit. You know what helps? Regulation, taxation, like we did, or we are doing in some states, not Wisconsin, on the cannabis trade, man. I mean, let's just stop screwing around and accept that we are a flawed species, and some people want to get high and get drunk or do whatever those things are. And yes, if you're doing those things and you cause some trouble, you certainly should be consequence. But the consequence of just imbibing in the drink, in the weed, and in filling your drug here, I think we need to get over that and really start dealing with what the root causes are. Like, I don't know, people feel like the world's going to hell in a handbasket because we got the orange guy causing all sorts of havoc out there. Call me crazy, but that's where I'm at on. I'm sorry, man. I got a little rant here, man.
No, but Trump wants the optics of, just brutally mishandling people of color and sending them brutally, to some country that's going to put him in a horrible prison like in El Salvador. That's what he wants.
Well, do we even know there are people of color? I mean, how do we know that Michael Cohen wasn't on that plane, man? They haven't provided anything to the judge who's been asking for 3 days. Folks are listening to the Dom Salvia Show. I'm asking you, tell us something good. We got one final segment. You know how we wrap it up on the show. Call us up. Tell us something good. 855-752-4842.
One minute. $30. $10.
We all running in the same race. Ain't nobody winning. We only here for a minute, yeah. So everybody slow down. Your life is beautiful. Let's all take a moment now. Let's just try to breathe it in.
And welcome back to the Dom Salvia Show. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It is our last segment of the day. And what as we like to do, we like to talk about something good, something happy, put a smile on your face, wrap the show up with a cherry on top. It's all Jess's idea. It's her world. I'm just living in it. Thank you, Jess. It's always a lot of fun. And you can join us. We'll get to you, 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. We got a texter in here. Let's see. Andrew from Maine said, the wife made it to 50 years old today. Wow, the big 50.
Birthday.
Oh, you kids are so cute. And she's feeling slightly better while battling the flu.
Oof.
Oh, that's got to be tough. Hey, happy birthday. You're 50, man. Well, I'm glad she's feeling better. Happy birthday to Mrs. Andrew from Maine. We appreciate you playing with us. 855-752-4842. Matt, I think we do some poetry is a big thing we like to do. It makes you happy. Tell us about what you're thinking about today, Matt.
Well, a friend of mine, thank you, Betsy, gave me a book by Margaret Atwood, famous for Handmaid's Tale. But Margaret Atwood's been a poet for 62 years, and the new book is called Paper Boat, New and Selected Poems, 1961 to 2023. So I'm really enjoying reading that. And I thought we'd offer a poem by Margaret Atwood for our listening audience. So here's a poem called Night Poem. It's a parenting poem and a Northwoods poem. So here's right. Margaret Atwood in her own voice.
Night Poem. There is nothing to be afraid of. It is only the wind changing to the east, It is only your father, the thunder, your mother, the rain. In this country of water, with its beige moon damp as a mushroom, its drowned stumps and long birds that swim, where the moss grows on all sides of the trees, and your shadow is not your shadow, but your reflection. Your true parents disappear when the curtain covers your door. We are the others, the ones from under the lake, who stand silently beside your bed with our heads of darkness. We have come to cover you with red wool, with our tears and distant whispers. You rock in the rain's arms, the chilly arc of your sleep, while we wait your night, father and mother, with our cold hands and dead flashlight, knowing we are only the wavering shadows thrown by one candle in this echo you will hear 20 years later.
I love that Margaret Atwood poem, night poem.
Damn.
You hear echoes from your parents, not only 20 years on, but
Right.
60 years on.
As long as you're alive, you will hear those echoes. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. Jess, you got anything you want to throw out there, Jess?
Yeah,
Yeah?
I know that not everyone loves this weather, but when it's storming out, I am at my happiest. I love storms. I love the sound of the thunder. I love the sound of the rain, and just having a little bit of time today to be able to watch that was something really good for me.
And we've had some hell of a storms rolling through here in Wisconsin. You know, when I was a kid growing up, we lived out on top of a hill in Stevensville, Wisconsin, and we had a deck facing the south. And when storms would come in, we had a great view of this thing just rolling in. And I saw a meme recently about like, hey, here's Midwesterners when a storm rolls in, and here's everybody else. Like everyone else is in the basement with their candle, their light.
We're grabbing a cup of tea.
Right, their radio, their battery powered radio, you know, all being safe, and the rest of us were out on the deck going, man, that's a big tornado.
Would you look at that one?
Look at that one. 855-752-4842, 855-75 Civic, the original Claire, the OC. What's up, Claire? Tell us something good.
Hey, Dom. I've got part 2 of a silly joke for you.
All right.
Okay, what do you call a guy with no shovel in his head?
Not Doug?
Douglas.
He's Douglas. You're so close, Jess. Thank you, Claire. Appreciate the puns as always. Let's see what's something good. So, what is today's hump day? Wednesday. Yeah. I just firmed up with my siblings. Going to go visit Mom this weekend. And you know, Ma's in a memory care. She got some white matter disease. Not doing great, but she's still got a good sense of humor. And when she's awake and active and at it, we have a great time. And so my sister was visiting recently, and she didn't want to get out of bed that day, and she didn't really eat a whole lot, but she had lots of juice. And before she went to her nap, my sister said, "Hey, you know, we're all coming up on Saturdays. Anything you want?" She's like, Ma thought for a moment. She said, "I want donuts."
No, right.
I'm like, hey.
All right,
Ma, that's what I'm talking about. I want donuts too.
Yeah.
We used to get donuts when we were a kid, man. My dad would go out to the local store and we'd get these big apple fritters, man. I mean, yeah. When you're small, this thing's as big as your head. I couldn't believe that this was a donut and this was a thing, and I to this day love apple fritters. So
me too.
I'm gonna go have an apple fritter with Mom this weekend. Hey, folks, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for playing along. Thank you to Julie Bomar, the executive director from the Wisconsin Farmers Union. There is more reporting on this. Perhaps we'll get to this tomorrow. Political has a piece out talking about the extent of the money that is being cut from these programs. And we didn't get to the angry Democrats, but you know, I'm one of those today. We'll get to them perhaps next week. Thank you, Matt Rothschild, for joining me on Wednesdays. Thank you, Jess PS, for all the hard work that you do. And folks, stick around. Pete Schwaba, the Nightlight, is coming up next. Have a great evening. Drive safe out there. We had a text to say something good. The rain stopped. It's snowing now, so be careful out there in Madison. Folks, have a great night. We'll see you on the radio tomorrow.